Welcome, the hour being 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. The Tooele City Council and the Redevelopment Agency of Tooele City are meeting in a work meeting. This work meeting is being held at Tooele City Hall in the council chambers located at 90 North Main Street in Tooele, Utah. It is also being broadcast on the Tooele City YouTube channel. We will start with a roll call. Councilwoman Manzio.
Present.
Councilwoman Goches.
Present.
Councilman Hanson.
Present.
Councilman McCall.
Present.
I'm Councilman Brady, and I'm also present. Item 3 is the mayor's report.
Thank you, Chairman and Council. Tonight, I just wanted to remind everyone about 2 days after Thanksgiving, we're going to have some special events to bring in the holidays. So we've got a little slide here that's got some dates on it. So Saturday, November the 30th, this is really Small Business Saturday. And so we would really like to invite everyone downtown to come and shop and see what kind of businesses that we have downtown. We also have a little drawing going. So if you go to any of the stores that are participating downtown, which were quite a few of them, you can go to their store and get a little punch card type thing, and you would take it to each store and get, just so that we know you visited the stores. And then we're going to put those cards in a drawing, and we're going to draw 3 $500 grocery gift cards. We know that grocery prices are not coming down yet. We hope at some point that they will, but we thought this would be a great thing to help our community. So that will happen from 10 to 5 p.m., so it's pretty much all day. We are going to have the Santa Parade begin at 2 p.m., bring Santa to town, and then following the parade, Santa will be over at the Ritz Theater, and you from 3 to 5, so they can go down and see Santa and then also sing some Christmas carols at the same time. That'll be really fun. And then at 5:30, we'll go back up to the Veterans Park, and we will turn on the Christmas tree lights. So we're really excited for that to happen. So I'm hoping that each of you will be there to help me throw candy in the parade. Lots of candy. We'll be walking. And throw a lot of candy out. But this will be just a great way to bring in the holidays, and we wish everyone happy Thanksgiving next week. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 4, which is the council members' report. We'll start with Councilman McCall.
Since the last meeting, I forgot something that I did, but I know I attended the Arts Council. Oh, and I attended the CJC meeting as well. That's it.
Thank you. Councilman Hanson.
I went to a boarding meeting up with Switchpoint. I know it's not a city thing, but it's with Switchpoint. And they did their report, and there's a lot of good news up there. There's a lot less people on the waiting list to get in, and they've placed some other peoples in other towns that were coming in, so things look pretty good up there. They got a couple more little things going. It was interesting that they got a worm farm going for some of their residents to work on, and they got a lot of worms, and I guess they make lots of cool things, but I thought we just fished with them, but I found out different. But they have like their shells that come off, and they make fertilizer and all kinds of crazy stuff. So
Who knew?
who knew? Yeah. Yep. And they can sell them for night crawlers for fishermen, so yeah. So anyway, but that was an interesting thing I learned today about worms. And we met with me and Justin met with the mayor last Friday, and then there was a developer after that we talked to. So lots of fun stuff. Yeah. Can't remember what else, but that's good.
It all blends together. All right, Councilwoman Goches.
I'm going to have to poke Dave. I want to congratulate him for the wonderful job that he did on the Elks Veterans Day of Remembrance. He was in charge of that. He just didn't report on it. He did a fabulous job as always, and it was held at the St. Marguerite's, and children sang and people participated on the program, and it was just absolutely wonderful. So thanks, Dave. I also attended a Veterans Day event at Tooele High School. It was super cool. There was an Apache helicopter that landed in a program for the kids, and it was very motivational and very patriotic. I also attended a patriotic concert at the Excelsior Academy, and it was just a very nice day of remembrance. And I did have a commitment the day of the CJC meeting. I had to be excused, and so thanks, Dave, for attending. And I also got a copy of the notes, so I'm up to speed on that. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Councilwoman Manzione.
Thanks. She beat me to the punch. I was also going to shout out to Dave, who didn't take any credit, but it was a very nice Veterans Day program. And I loved seeing the banners up at Main Street for a longer period of time. That was awesome, but it also looks very festive now with the Christmas stuff up. So thanks, the people who had a part in putting that up. I also just wanted to give a thanks to our Planning and Zoning Commission. Councilman Hanson and I attend on a regular basis, and they do a great job and have some great discussions. And they had a really good discussion last meeting, and it's just good to hear their thoughts, and it helps us in making our decisions as well. And then yesterday I was able to spend the day with our Economic Development Director, John, and EDC Utah, and a company that is considering Tooele as their next location. It was a good day. It's always good to be able to showcase our great city. That's all I have.
Thank you. I attended my weekly meeting with the mayor and her staff, and I think that pretty much concludes my report. All the days kind of blend together, so kind of a blur sometimes. All right, we'll move on to our discussion items. We have one discussion item, 2025 Workers' Compensation Insurance Update, presented by Cammie Perkins, the HR Director.
Okay, Chairman, I worry that staff meeting is just too much for you, that it's all a blur. But we appreciate you being there. I think it's really good to have that connection and communication. So I didn't realize I was the only one on the agenda, but thank you for coming and engaging in a wonderful discussion on the world of workers' compensation. The city purchasing policy actually does exempt us from having to bring the contract every year and do a renewal, because workers' compensation, there's not a lot of places that will actually insure local government. Public safety is a big issue for them, and it's just a high liability. We're fortunate we have been with WCF Insurance. It used to be called the Workers' Compensation Fund of Utah. About a decade ago, they rebranded and changed their business model, and it's now WCF Insurance. But they have insured Tooele City for as long as I have been here, and I think have been good to our employees and good with our rates. So the last time that I provided you an update was in 2022, and so at staff meeting, I asked the chairman if he would like us to give you an update with the renewal, and this is much different from when I came to you in 2022. 2022 was to tell you this is not going to be a good renewal. This one is going to be the best renewal that I think I have had in the 20 plus something years that I've worked for you, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about what's happened, maybe bore you a little bit with education. But this is over $100,000 insurance policy each year, so I do think it's important to make sure you guys know what's going on with your workplace. The number one thing that we'll always start with is workers' compensation. Of course, our first priority is employee safety. So we have insurance to help us when employees are injured, but the goal is always to make sure that we're sending employees home healthy and well, and we're doing what we need to do to make sure that they're not injured on the job. When we do have injuries, we want to have a good insurance company that evaluates that risk and takes care of our employees and their families according to statute and law. But also, as you're aware, workers' compensation is the primary insurance of last resort. So we want to make sure that our volunteers that are on our volunteer roster are official, that we have policies in place for our volunteer firefighters, and that we have good policies and procedures and practices and a culture within our workplace where safety matters. And I think this is one of the best compliments I get as the HR director. When somebody says, ooh, Cammie would come unglued if she saw that happen. Has that happened to everybody in the room? Did you say it today? I've been called the seatbelt. They used the Nazi once, and I said, excellent, that's the best policy you can get, but let's come up with a different title, something that doesn't have that. And that starts with culture, and I want you to know that the commitment to safety starts from the top, but it's embraced all the way throughout our organization. Our culture we have set up to where we empower our employees that whether you are the most entry level or the most brand new of our 2 employees in the workplace, we want you to speak up and say something and help us to protect each other and get them home. And I think we have just made great strides over the years with that. We welcome, one of the things in the HR world you hate is when Clarissa comes back and says, there's a lady from OSHA here to see you. Okay, most in the private sector know that's always not fun. For us, we welcome them. We want to make sure we're doing things right, we're doing things safe, and that we are providing the resources to our employees that they need to do their jobs safely. So just to give you an idea, workers' compensation renews for us on a calendar year. Most everything else comes to you on a fiscal year basis. This is one of the unique things that I'm in charge of that we do on a calendar year. And the reason being is because with workers' compensation, we have to give them what's called a payroll projection. I have to come up with my best guess estimate of how much we're going to pay employees and what our payroll will be for the 2025 calendar year. And I do that by looking back at what we paid the prior year, adding in what we anticipate might be inflation or cost of living or other increases, rumors about maybe new positions that might be added. And I do my best to try and give them solid numbers. Did you guys catch that when I said estimate and solid together? But we try to give them good numbers to where they can then project what our payroll liability might be. They charge rates based on different class codes. And so every job that we have within the city is tied to EEO codes and other variables, but one is called a rate class code. And for Tooele City, they charge a rate for our streets employees. There's a different rate per payroll for our firefighters, a different rate for our volunteer firefighters. Then we have clerical office type positions and a catch-all category of a municipal employee. And most of our workforce is in the municipal employee category. That's people that drive or do physical labor type work. And as you can imagine, it's the most expensive of all of the class codes. So when I talk to you about our premiums, they're going to look at payroll. They look at payroll based on the class code, and then they identify what tier or what rate they're going to put us in. And they give us a starting point. And I am pleased that this year we are staying in the same rate class code and the same tier as we were last year. So to start out with the base, that means we have a rate hold. However, we know our payroll will likely go up. So it does increase a little bit on that because of the payroll increase. But to have a rate hold on our class codes, I haven't seen that before. Those normally adjust up or down on us. The next thing I want to talk to you about, though, is after they determine what the base policy is going to be, they apply what's called an experience modifier. This is the stuff that I get excited about. This is the stuff you guys don't care about until I tell you you want to care about it. So an experience modifier in the industry, if you are a 1.0, that means in general terms is you're an average workplace. For government and like entities, a 1.0 means we're average. That is determined by a company called NCCI. They get all of our claims. And they will look at our claims and look at our industry and look at what WCF had to pay. And then they determine what our risk ratio is. And I want to give you a few numbers. Beginning in 2012, this is not in your packet, but I wanted to look it up. Beginning in 2012 and then moving forward, I'm just going to tell you, and I can give this to you later if you want it, but 1.07, 0.9, 0.79, 0.85, 0.72. If you're below 1.0, remember that's good. Okay. Then starting in 2017, 1.01, 1.21, 1.12, 1.19, 1.47, 2022, 1.8. Remember when I said last time I was here was in 2022? It reduces in 2023 to 1.54. 2024 was 0.84, and we are renewing with a 0.62 experience modifier. How that's determined is they look at 3 years worth of claims. When you have a bad year, it sticks with you for 3 years. But when you have a good year, it also sticks with you for 3 years. So we had in 2018 and 2019 2 really bad years. I mean, I just sat there and I thought, and they were things that some of them were avoidable and some weren't. Officers hurt in the line of duty. When we have an officer that's going head-to-head tackling the bad guy that's just escaped from a bad situation, and in the middle of it, they blow their knee out, we want him to get the bad guy. We're not gonna say, wait, let's stop and do a hazard analysis and look around you. So there's some that are just not avoidable. Right, Chief?
Just laughing.
And he always hates when I send him the emails on his claim costs, but that's part of what we do to raise awareness in our culture as well. So this year, when we got our renewal, I told you it was a rate hold, and assuming payroll stayed the same, it would be a rate hold. But we are dropping again from a 0.84 to a 0.62, and I'm going to use the term discount. They take and they give us, it's an approximate 40%. So with that, we are going to project that we're having an increase in our payroll, but overall, our reduction was, and you'll see this in the packet that I gave to you, if you'll just turn to page 3 of the handouts. You're going to see that the estimated premium, last year's premium was $117,000. The 2025 policy renewal, even though our payroll is going up, they're estimating it will end up being about $100,000, and that's in part to that discount due to our experience modifier. When I told you we renew in January of each year, and because we estimate our payroll, they do come back in January and they audit our payroll. That's when they shore it up. And if I overestimated, we get a little bit of a refund. If I underestimated, then we end up having to pay a little bit more. And that gives Shannon time to adjust in budget if we need to pay more. But most of the time, I come pretty close, you guys. The only year that I really sweat was when we did that big adjustment on the cops in October, because I didn't know how that was going to impact the renewal. But with that, it's, I think, been a great year this year. Just to give you an idea that we've had very few claims this year, very few injuries, which is nice, because when you start to see lots of little injuries, that tells us there's a bigger picture that we need to look at as well. But this year, we've really only had one significant injury, and that was a public safety injury again. That one's estimated to be about $20,000 in a claim. Just to give you an idea, we've had some that have been $250,000, $80,000. Joints are always really expensive. So next year, I'm anticipating that our EMOD will drop even below 0.62. Now, I'm going to knock on wood because it only takes 1 or 2 bad claims. We try to analyze our claims. We try to avoid having what we call lost time claims, meaning that's when they have to pay lost wages. We do some things internally with policies and procedures and post-accident review and discussion. We try to balance out privacy of our employees because it is still medical information, but also with making sure that we're on top of our safety culture and that people know that when somebody slips on the ice, it was a lot cheaper to buy slip-resistant boots for them than to pay for the claim. So when they did our renewal, they asked me, Cami, what's changed? What has the city been doing differently? And when you're put on the spot and you ask those kind of questions, it's a little bit hard to answer that. But I got thinking about some of the things we've done. You just recently approved a new scissor lift. That takes somebody off a ladder. One of our biggest claims was a ladder injury. You've replaced equipment. You've updated equipment. Sometimes we think that having backing cameras in vehicles is a luxury and not necessary. They're starting to encourage us to have that additional safety feature. Replacing tools and equipment when you have machine guards that we've just had the same piece of equipment now for 20 years, the technology has changed. Yes, we can retrofit things, but technology and safety changes. And so I told them, I've just seen you and the mayor make a big investment in replacing equipment and getting new devices and being able to continue with training budgets. Sometimes we think that that's luxury and vacations and whatnot, but training does matter when we have them going and learning about confined spaces and why things need to be shored up and why we have handrails and guardrails and all of those different things in the workplace. The other investment that I think has been very significant is in PPE gear. This is partially to let you guys know what you've done and how you've contributed to that. Anybody have any idea how much a pair of steel-toe boots costs these days? $300. Good job, Dave. Yeah. Well, when I first got into the HR field, which was about 30 years ago, the steel-toe boots allowance was $45. These days, you're about $200 to $250 for a pair of steel-toe boots. And that, again, is PPE. That's so that they're not slipping. One of our injuries years ago, we had an employee who was at our golf course, and they were responsible for putting the stakes into the putting greens, or the directions, that have the like turn here things. So the employees are supposed to bend down and put them in, but it was a new employee, and he had a good arm, so he was throwing them into the ground and sticking them. And he happened to step right at the same time that the stake went down, and the stake went right through the top of his foot, right after the steel toe piece. Now, that was an employee doing the job not as he had been trained. But things that fall on your foot and whatnot, that matters. So steel toe boots, eye protection. You've made huge investments in SCBA gear for the fire department and their turnout gear. That's just no-brainer essential. But for a long time, that was not as high of a priority as what we'd like it to be. Gloves, slip-resistant shoes, uniforms, and equipping our police department. Those things all add up to help us to try to keep our EMOD down. The other thing that I will tell you, I really appreciate, we do have a great relationship with a couple of our industrial clinics here locally. Mountain West works very well with us. For our primary intake, we go there, or Tooele Valley Urgent Care. They're the two main facilities. But they'll communicate with us, and they do their best to help return employees to the workplace. Instead of giving them a note that says this employee needs to be off work for 3 days, that turns into 10 days, that turns into 15. A lot of times we'll get the phone call that says, do you have work they can do that's transitional duty? You bet. No one's ever wanted to come work for the HR team yet. We're still working on getting one of those. But that helps with employee mental health as well as returning back. So I wanted to just give you an update on where we're at. 2022 was hard because that was a 200,000 plus policy, and that takes money out of the budget for other things. Our workforce has done exceptional over the last few years, and a lot of that is the leadership that we've got, but I do believe it starts with the employees and their attitude and culture. And so it was one of those, when we get to stand up and discuss the bad, I wanted to also stand up and share with you guys that we've had a couple really good years, and when they asked me again, I'm going to tie up with you, and they said, what are you guys doing differently? It really made me step back and think and say, is it just the luck, or is it things differently? It's a combination of both. But with that, we will be sure to get our renewal through. And unless you have any questions about that, I hope that was just a good overview and education and provided you some valuable information on what we do and what we've done and how you've helped us make that happen.
Thanks, Cami.
Thank you.
Anything?
I'm glad you explained the charts and stuff, because just reading it, I didn't get all that. So thanks.
Okay, do you have any more questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
We
thank you,
appreciate
you
it.
guys.
Okay, we'll move on to item 6, which is closed meeting. We do not have anything for closed meeting tonight. So we will move to item 7, which is to adjourn at 6:53, and then we'll reconvene at 7 for our business meeting.